everything went black.
My eyes are open, and unless I've been blinded, it is black as night.
Just tried to breathe. I was behind a car. I tried to smash one of the car windows so that I could climb into the car and get some fresh air, but I couldn't break the window, so just sort of went down into the gutter under the car.
I'm sorry I came down. I just had to help people.
I think I actually said into the microphone, I sort of apologized to my family for going down and trying to help, because I really didn't think I was going to make it out. Okay, I'm going to have to go find people who need help. I don't think I'm one of them. You okay, sir? Okay. Can I just get a toot off your respirator? Yeah. Can I get a toot? I'm seeing a couple of clean breaths. It was hard to see. Everybody's eyes were full of dust and stinging, so it's actually quite hard to see anything. Yeah. Okay. Back to you. It's 10:41.
We're going to interrupt this piece right now. We want to take you live to the State Department. This is Richard Boucher taking questions and giving answers from reporters. Let's listen in.
Still apply, but it's as each mission looks at its security situation. Where does it feel safest? Where does it feel its vulnerabilities are? Are there vulnerabilities that we can correct by local action and things like that? And I would say the other thing is that around the world our missions have been asking host governments for support and assistance in all kinds of things, closing down streets, adding more guards, adding more patrols, having visible police presence, things like that. And in every single case we've gotten the support that we've asked for. Betsy?
Some countries have offered assistance to this country and, teams of people to help in the rubble at the World Trade Center and things like that. Has the U.S. responded to this? Have we accepted or rejected any offers of help?
We've been passing on all that information to the Federal Emergency Management Agency to make sure they know what's available from overseas sources. There's indeed been an outpouring of offers, specialized teams, bloods, just a whole lot of different things, equipment that people around the world have. I think we leave it to the federal authorities to sort of sort it out, figure out if there is stuff that we would find useful. There's also, as you know, been an outpouring of support and assistance in the United States among our own people in terms of giving blood, or teams from the country coming up to help with the search. So I'm not sure that'll be necessary, but let the appropriate federal authorities sort it out. I'm not aware that we've asked for anything at this point. Terry?
This morning the Secretary said that there's an accumulating mound of evidence, and that very soon the government will make a decision on what they should do. Are you steering us away from the general assumption that this is bin Laden related? Is when he talks about the evidence, is that pointing any other direction that you can share with us?
I'm not steering you in any direction whatsoever. I'm not steering you in circles either. I'm just not into this. We're not pointing fingers. We're not saying who done it. We're going to do this carefully. We're going to maintain the ability to collect information and not reveal the sources of it. And we're going to, I'm sure, make the decisions in a careful manner at the right time. And I'm not intending to steer you towards, away, or in any direction whatsoever. I'm not driving that car.
Return to Washington, did the Secretary have telephone contact with the President?
No, they didn't actually talk until he got back to Washington. Rich Armitage, of course, the Deputy Secretary, was here, was working with the entire National Security team. And Secretary talked to Mr. Armitage numerous times throughout the day. They can talk when they need to, and it works out for both of them. It just didn't happen to be the case yesterday.
You said there were no warnings that led to the closing of the 50 embassies and missions, but have there been...
No particular warnings. There's obviously worldwide threats.
Well, that's what I want to know. Have there been any new warnings that lead to new concern about subsequent actions?
I think the warnings that we've issued before in terms of the June 22nd warning, the update that we did last week, those all still apply. I don't have any new information on that, though.
Richard, the King of Morocco canceled the trip to Mauritania and returned home, and the King of Jordan was also on his way here and also returned home. Is there any possible relationship between that and this event, in the sense that there's a dichotomy between these governments have all condemned the attacks and the people in the streets are all supporting it? Is there some fear?
Once again, I'm really down here to tell you that Secretary can't brief right now. I wasn't coming to deal with all the dichotomies in the world, so I really don't feel I can do that right now. The two windows look like early afternoon or later in the afternoon, so between now and the end of the day. I'm sorry. I don't want to get us all out.
Some of us have to go back to offices.
I know. I don't want to get us all, back here at some time because I speculate at this point. I got to talk.
Like not before 1, not before 2.
Can you give us a half-hour warning?
Yeah, we'll give you as much warning as possible, and half hour seems more than reasonable.
Okay. Thank you.
We were listening to Richard Boucher, State Department spokesman. We'll wrap up what he had to say in just a moment, but while he was speaking, we got some very important information to us here at CNN. Word from the FAA. Of course, you are aware that flights were apparently or possibly supposed to resume across the U.S. at noon Eastern, 40 minutes from now. The FAA saying now that is not going to happen. They are not going to clear the hold on flights across the U.S. We don't have word yet on what the next deadline might be as to when flights might resume. But very importantly, the FAA is saying those flights will not resume across the U.S. 40 minutes from now, as was originally scheduled. Leon.
Yeah, that's going to complicate matters for quite a few people, because I heard reports this morning of people who have been driving from city to city to try to get ahead of their travel plans for the day to perhaps get to the city they were going to leave on their connecting flight out of. And now it's going to complicate matters even further for them. So we'll keep our eyes on that and report you the latest details as we get them here. In the meantime, though, let's check in now with our Kate Snow, who's on Capitol Hill. Kate?
Leon, Congress has been in session now for just over an hour, both the Senate and the House taking a little break right now. But on both sides, in both chambers, what we're hearing and what we're seeing is raw emotion from members of Congress, people talking about the horrific events of yesterday. There are themes emerging. One theme that the Congress is unified, that there are no party lines here anymore. These attacks were attacks on the U.S.'s freedom. They were acts of cowardice, and Congress is prepared to fight whoever is responsible.
Make no mistake, this was an act of war against the United States and all of our people. And we will not be divided. All of us, the President, the Congress, and the American people, are today and will be tomorrow, and in all the tomorrows, totally and completely united in our determination to begin the process of healing and to take swift action to see that the people who committed this horrible crime are properly punished. May God shed His grace on this great and wonderful country and all of our people.
Dick Gephardt getting a standing ovation for his comments, echoed in the Senate chamber by Senator Daschle and Senator Lott. Senator Charles Schumer, the senior senator from New York, also spoke a short time ago. He talked very emotionally. He talked about his daughter, who goes to school at a building right next door to the Twin Towers, and how for 2 hours he and his wife struggled to find her. They weren't sure of her whereabouts. They did find her. Then he talked about the others who are missing in New York City.
Everyone in New York right now knows somebody who's missing. I know of a call. Someone on the 104th floor worked for the good firm of Cantor and Fitzgerald. We can't find hardly anybody from that firm, who called his parents, told them he loved him, and they haven't heard from him since.
That emotion leading up to a vote later tonight. We expect to hear from every senator and every House member today about these terrible events, but they are voting on this. This is a resolution, a joint resolution of the House and the Senate, bipartisan. It says the Senate and House of Representatives condemn in the strongest possible terms the terrorists. It talks about extending deep condolences. We are certain the United States people will stand united. We commend the heroic actions of the rescue workers, volunteers, and state and local officials. This resolution goes on to thank foreign leaders and individuals who have expressed solidarity with the United States. It says we are committed to support increased resources in, quote, the war to eradicate terrorism. Talks about supporting the president. And finally, it declares that September 12th, 2001 shall be a national day of unity and mourning, and that when the Congress adjourns on this legislative day, which we expect to be much later on this evening, it stands adjourned out of respect to the victims of the terrorist attacks. Leon, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Kate Snow on Capitol Hill. You know, many are going to withhold the process of mourning until at least the process of finding out who is inside that building is complete. Let's go up to New York now. Paula standing by on the roof. Paula?
Thanks so much, Leon. We have talked so much this morning about how New Yorkers are shattered by the loss of life here. We certainly don't understand the magnitude of the tragedy just yet. But I want to check in with Gary Brees right now, who is the Executive Director of the International Association of Fire Chiefs. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, sir.
Good morning.
What I want to say is just based on the reaction I've gotten from people in the street. The news that in many ways has hit New Yorkers the hardest is that some 260 firefighters and police officers are believed dead. 260 perhaps of the initial 400 firefighters that were sent into the line of duty. The city of New York has lost its fire chief as well as its deputy fire chief. What kind of message do you have for the rest of the country today about the kinds of risks you all take on day in and day out?
Well, the firefighters of this nation are doing exactly what firefighters are supposed to do, setting aside their own grief, their own passion, and beginning to search for survivors. That's the message we need to deliver to the American public today, is that the fire service is moving forward to do everything that it possibly can to identify, locate, and rescue survivors.
I understand that, and I understand the enormous commitment all of you make to your jobs, and yet I was talking with one of our reporters earlier this morning, Gary Tuchman, who was talking about how, and indeed, this enormous loss, it's got to affect the morale of these firefighters who still have to go to work and deal with the gruesomeness of this tragedy here.
It affects every firefighter in the nation. We have now on the ground in New York City 12 urban search and rescue teams that are beginning the work of organizing the rescue effort to assist the New York City Fire Department. This will be a tremendous effort, well beyond anything we've ever attempted in the past. If you go back to Oklahoma City, you recognize that it took us working 24 hours a day on a 5-story building, 10 days to clear that site. The enormity of this situation in New York City is beyond anybody's imagination, but you can rest assured that the fire service will not rest until every potential survivor has been located and a rescue attempt has been made and as many casualties have been removed from the situation as possible.
This horrible loss comes on the heels of New York City losing many other firefighters here to catastrophes. Have you given any thought to setting up any kind of fund for the family members of those who've been lost?
Those discussions are initially taking place right now, but quite frankly, we are focused on providing as much assistance as we can to both the New York City Fire Department as well as the Arlington County Fire Department for the Pentagon rescues. We have 2 sites that are going on with 16 urban search and rescue teams and thousands of firefighters working on this issue on both of these sites.
All right.
That's the first priority today.
All right. Gary, you just mentioned the 16 urban search and rescue teams. Give us, as to the best of your knowledge, what they're going to confront in not only the rescue operation part of this, but the cleanup.
Well, the biggest factor we're working against right now is time. About 90% of the survivors come out in the first 24 hours, and we're on that time deadline right now. That's why it's so important that these teams are organized, get in to begin working as quickly as possible, working with the firefighters that are in New York City now and getting the rescues attempted and succeeded. The longer we go into this rescue effort, the less chance we have of recovering survivors. But we will stay there as long as there's any potential at all for rescuing survivors.
I know you've looked at the same gruesome pictures I have. I have been sickened for over 24 hours now. I know you guys always have hope. You're going to find folks in debris, but when you look at these horrific images, are you surprised that so far 9 folks have been rescued, including 6 firefighters and then 3 police officers and possibly 2 civilians shortly?
We're not surprised at all that so few rescues are being made.
I'm actually suggesting the opposite. The fact that 11 people could potentially be found alive? I mean, we know that 9 have already been rescued and 2 are in the process of being rescued.
Right.
It seems a miracle to those